the source of tears. The darkness did not simply descend upon the forest. It was as if a heavy black shroud had fallen among the trees, stifling every natural sound. "Do not move, Steve. If you move, it will hear you," Mark hissed, while his nails dug deep into the damp earth. Barely 5 meters from them, something huge and unnaturally thin waded through the dense undergrowth. It did not move like a bear or a wolf. Its steps were unrhythmical, as if its limbs were too long for its own body, and with every single movement, a bony click could be heard from the dark. Peter, pressing against the trunk of the tree, tried to hold back his sobbing. He pressed his hand over his mouth, but the scraping fear rising from his throat almost suffocated him. Greg crouched to his left in the depths of a thick juniper, with their only weapon in his hand, a blunt hiking axe, which at that moment seemed like nothing more than a toothpick. The creature stopped. A long, wet sniff was heard as it scented the air. Then a sound broke from its throat, but it was not an animal roar. It was as if 1,000 tiny glass shards were rubbed together, echoing a distorted human laughter. "Come out, boys! The bacon is done," the voice whispered, but it did not come from its throat. Rather, it spoke directly in their heads, imitating the voice of Steve from their earlier dinner. Steve then committed the fatal mistake. His left leg had gone numb, and with a careless movement, he snapped a dry twig. The clicking noise stopped immediately. The head of the creature, if it had one, turned lightning fast in the direction of the sound. 20 hours earlier, everything still seemed perfect. The 4 friends, Peter, the brains of the team, Steve, the athletic and confident guy, Mark, the technical genius, and Greg, the quiet observer, cheerfully set off into the thicket. The plan was simple: a 2-day hike, camping in the wilderness, then at the end of the 2nd day reaching the Great Canyon, which local legends only called the Devil's Throat. The backpacks were heavy, but the mood was light. Mark even brought a special, self-developed motion sensor, which he proudly showed to the others. "This indicates even a squirrel's sneeze around the tent," he boasted, while Steve only waved it off. Around 3 in the afternoon they reached a hidden clearing, in the middle of which a crystal-clear spring broke out from the rocks. Locals called it the Source of Tears, but the boys were only interested in the cool water and the perfect camping spot. "We stop here. We build a fire, have dinner, and tomorrow we set off fresh for the Great Canyon," Peter issued the command. The fire was soon merrily blazing. Greg and Steve brought out bacon and put the fatty morsels on long skewers. The smell of frying bacon filled the clearing, and the sizzling drowned out the distant noises of the forest. They laughed, told old stories, and did not notice that the forest around them had grown strangely silent. The birds had fallen silent hours ago. "Do you guys hear it too?" Mark asked suddenly, while munching on the bacon. "What? Your stomach growling?" Steve joked. "No. It is as if someone is imitating us." Mark took out his little device, the sensor. The display began to flash wildly. "Something is in the area, larger than a deer, and it is moving very slowly." The light of the fire suddenly wavered, as if an invisible hand were strangling the flames. The water of the spring, which had been splashing softly until now, began to bubble, and its color turned dark red in the moonlight. "Let us go into the tents," Greg said softly, and his voice trembled. "Something is not right." In the middle of the night, the sharp, shrieking sound of the sensor woke them. The device, which Mark had placed at the edge of the camp, indicated that something had crossed the security line. But not at one point, but all around, as if they were enclosed in a siege ring. When Peter ventured out of the tent, the fire was only embers. In the darkness he saw those eyes, not 2 eyes, but dozens, as they flickered among the crowns of the trees at different heights. And then that voice spoke. "Dinner time, we are frying bacon." It was heard in the voice of Steve from the dark, even though Steve stood there beside Peter, deathly pale. The creature, which was called the Mimic in old mountain tales, began the hunt. The boys began to flee, leaving behind equipment, tent, safety. They threw themselves into the thick of the night forest, hoping that they would somehow reach the ranger station on the edge of the Great Canyon. Returning to the present, after the snap of Steve's twig, the creature did not jump on them. It did something much worse. It started running around them, clicking on the trunks of the trees round and round, narrowing the circle more and more. "Run!" Peter yelled, and this time they did not care about hiding. The chase was brutal. The twigs lashed their faces. Their lungs burned from the cold night air. Behind them, the creature spoke continuously. It called to them in the voice of Mark's mother, then imitated the howling of Greg's childhood dog. The psychological warfare almost broke them. They had almost reached the edge of the canyon where the terrain became steep. In the distance, a tiny yellowish light glinted. A lamp. There. The ranger station. Mark cried out. But the creature was faster. With a huge leap, it cut in front of them. Now they saw it in its entirety for the first time. A withered, elongated body, the skin of which was like rotten tree bark, and in place of its face was only a huge, gaping opening, full of tiny, needle-sharp teeth. It had no eyes, yet it knew exactly where they were. The creature raised its long, sickle-like arm to strike down at Steve, who was running in the very front. Steve stumbled and closed his eyes, waiting for the deadly blow. At that moment, however, a bang shook the forest. Then another. The creature shrieked painfully, this time in its own horrible voice. A bullet from a high-power hunting rifle hit its shoulder. Black, thick fluid splashed onto the ferns. "Here, toward the light. Quickly, while I reload." A deep, firm male voice rang out. From the dark, the lamps of a blue SUV lit up, flooding the clearing with blinding whiteness. Behind the steering wheel sat a young guy, and beside him a gray-bearded man wearing a weather-beaten hat held his rifle pressed to his shoulder as he stepped out. It was the ranger and his son, Tom Jr. Into the car. "Now," the ranger yelled, while firing 2 more shots toward the writhing shadow. The boys threw themselves into the back seat, treading on each other. Tom, the son of the ranger, immediately stepped on the gas as soon as the last door slammed. The wheels screamed on the gravel road, and the SUV broke a path toward the house, swaying wildly. The ranger turned back to the boys while he reloaded his weapon. His face was furrowed with concern, but calmness was reflected in his eyes. "You were lucky, guys. You camped at the source of tears, right?" he asked, but did not wait for the answer. "That thing does not like it if strangers eat in its territory, especially not bacon. The smell draws it here from kilometers away." The boys only panted, looking back through the rear window, trembling. In the darkness of the forest, the silhouette of the creature appeared once more, for the last time. It stood there at the edge of the road, motionless. As the car moved away, the wind carried one last sound toward them. "I will be waiting for you back, Peter, Steve, Mark, Greg," the creature whispered, this time in the voice of the ranger. But the SUV was already racing safely toward the valley, where the first rays of the rising sun were already beginning to wash away the horrors of the night. The boys knew they would never go on a trip again, and the smell of bacon would forever bring something else to their minds than hunger. They escaped, but they would never hear the sounds of the forest the same way as before. Hope you're loving our new story. We're dropping it chapter by chapter, so make sure you follow so you don't miss the next part. Hit like and tell us in the comments where you're going on vacation. You can also listen to our audiobooks anytime, even in bright sunlight when videos are hard to see on your phone. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to check out the next part.